More and more non-parent workers are feeling the pressure to work extra hours and through holiday periods simply because they don't have children. Researchers say workplace flexibility arrangements sometimes work against non-parent workers and lead to biased decision-making by managers. Melissa Wheeler is a senior lecturer from RMIT and she joins us now from Mount Martha in Victoria. Melissa Wheeler, welcome. So what is the reality when it comes to expectations on people without kids and working through periods like Christmas?
Well, as a flexibility, someone who's interested in flexible work arrangements as a researcher, I found a lot of non-parents are telling me that they often feel excluded from the flexible work conversations, especially when they're asked to give a reason for why they might need to be working flexibly. Of course, if a manager has to decide between one case against another, then they're going to have to make a decision as to which holds more weight. So this may be especially true during Christmas and the holiday periods, when you have parents who obviously would like to be with their children and opening those presents on Christmas morning. And so managers will have to then decide who they're going to give that flexible work to.
So is it, from your perspective, is it fair enough that they give it to the workers with kids rather than the workers who don't have kids?
Isn't fairness such a hard thing to argue? You've got equity on one hand and equality on the other. So if you had equality, then everyone would have the same chance of having to not work on Christmas Day. But when equity comes into the story, you do get to hear people's perspectives and why they might need those special circumstances. And so parents have been discriminated against in the past, in that most of the concerns were coming around parents feeling like they weren't able to work at the times that they needed to do so. So the discrimination was against the parents. So of course now with non-parents, they are feeling like they need to pick up the slack when parents need to request to not work on Christmas.
So Melissa, are you going to sit on the fence on this? Are you going to say? So
I will sit on the fence a little bit, but I think one way is that if we have policies in place where you don't have to provide a reason for why you need to work flexibly or why you might need that time off. So if you're not having to provide that reason, then managers who aren't always trained in knowing what's fair and what's not fair won't have to be the parties who make that decision to decide who gets to work flexibly and who doesn't. So if policies are in place where despite your circumstances, you will have an equal chance of working on Christmas or not, or other kind of flexible work arrangements where you might need to, pop into the doctor's office or take your kid to pop into the doctor's office. It's not necessarily the manager who should be deciding whose case holds more merit.
But the manager still has to make that decision.
They do. So if clear and transparent policies are in place to say you can request this time off and everyone's entitled to do so, you don't have to provide a reason. And especially if you can justify that your work won't be changed in any way, so you'll still be able to get that work done when you need to, then it won't be up to the managers to decide each individual policy.
Is there also an expectation on people without kids to work extra hours more broadly and not do things like not take holidays through school holidays?
Yeah, the research, there's some reports that have been out about the pressures that non-parents feel, and this actually falls especially to women who are non-mothers, who are, they don't want to feel selfish or look selfish if they're saying, I don't want to be working. If they want to request to go away during school holidays, then they should be entitled to do so without having to feel like they're being selfish for requesting that. So there's definitely the pressure, the relationships with coworkers as well. You don't want to be the one who's keeping a parent away from their kid on Christmas morning. So there's definitely a lot of pressure in the workplace.
Are there any laws or rules around this?
Well, I'm not a legal scholar, so I won't speak to any laws, but discrimination laws are, if anyone's being treated unfairly or differently than others, then there's certainly a case to look at who is allowed to request flexible work and who isn't, and who's being pressured or forced to work at times.
And so if someone feels like they're not getting a fair go, what's your advice?
Well, the The policies around hiring people based on discrimination are very clear. But if people aren't feeling like they're having a fair go, it seems like there might be a culture in that organization where people don't feel like they're allowed to voice their concerns, or that there may be repercussions for any kind of going against the grain.